Donald Trump has a sick new strategy to get around his gag order in the New York hush money trial. He's now using surrogates to attack and intimidate witnesses and the judge's family. Two of the nastiest GOP senators accompanied Donald Trump to court today and then unleashed their attack in a press conference outside the courthouse. Coming up, I'm going to play for you exactly what they said, and it is disturbing. Standing behind Trump as he delivered remarks to the press before entering the courtroom, you couldn't miss the presence of Republican Senators J.D. Vance and Tommy Tuberville. These two well-known MAGA senators have been leading the charge in defending Donald Trump. Joining Trump in court has become the new sign of obedience for Trump sycophants. During a break from the court proceedings, the GOP senators held a press conference and revealed why they were really there: to attack witnesses and the court on behalf of Donald Trump and therefore get around the gag order. J.D. Vance wasted no time and went right after today's star witness, Michael Cohen.
Michael Cohen is the prosecution's star witness. This guy is a convicted felon who admitted in his testimony that he secretly recorded his former employer, that he only did it once allegedly, and that this was supposed to help Donald Trump. Does any reasonable, sensible person believe anything that Michael Cohen says? I don't think that they should, and I actually think that his testimony is going to hurt with any reasonable juror, and hopefully we have a few of those.
Michael Cohen was mostly convicted of lying on behalf of Donald Trump. He went to prison for this exact crime that Donald Trump is now being charged with as a co-conspirator. Michael Cohen has since come forward and testified under oath in front of Congress and now in criminal court that Donald Trump was involved in the crime of falsifying business records to hide an illegal campaign contribution.
I want to say two other things here very quickly. Number one, the thing that the president is prevented from saying, which is a disgrace, is that every single person involved in this prosecution is practically a Democratic political operative. The judge inside, his daughter, is making millions of dollars running against Donald Trump, raising money for Donald Trump's political opponents. The number 3 person in the Department of Justice, Biden's Department of Justice, left to become a local prosecutor to go after Donald Trump. And of course, there's Alvin Bragg, a Soros-funded prosecutor who promised to go after Donald Trump and now is doing exactly that. Now look,
J.D. Vance rattled off a few talking points, so I'm going to quickly take them down one by one. He mentioned that Judge Juan Merchan's daughter is making millions of dollars running against Donald Trump. The judge's adult daughter does work for a company that does digital campaign work like online fundraising, mobile messaging, and web design. And the company works with high-profile Democratic political candidates, including some of Trump's most outspoken opponents. But so what? Is the judge responsible for what his adult children do for a living? It has nothing to do with him. Then J.D. Vance says that the number 3 person at the Department of Justice left to help prosecute Trump in this case. He's talking about Matthew Colangelo, a lead prosecutor who delivered opening remarks in this case. Senator Vance is peddling a ridiculous talking point that takes advantage of people's ignorance about how common it is for DOJ officials to leave and become prosecutors in places like New York City for the bigger caseload. And finally, Senator Vance said District Attorney Alvin Bragg was Soros funded and ran on getting Trump. The truth is that George Soros never donated money to Alvin Bragg. George Soros has funded nonprofits trying to reform our criminal justice system to change things like treating drug addiction as a disease, not a crime. And these nonprofits have endorsed and spent money to help reform-minded people like Alvin Bragg get elected.
Whether you love Donald Trump, whether you like Donald Trump, or whether you're a Democrat or don't care about politics, what's going on inside that courtroom is a threat to American democracy, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot have a country where you get to prosecute your political opponents instead of persuading voters. Joe Biden's entire strategy is to try to distract from inflation at home and war overseas with this sham trial. I just want to live in a reasonable country where we try to persuade voters in our politics. We don't try to throw our political opponents in jail. So this is a disgrace, and I wanted to be here to show some support for my friend.
Boy, talk about projection. Senator Vance is describing the Republican strategy, not President Biden's. Republicans aren't running on any policy except to drill, baby, drill, and shut the border. They offer no realistic solutions to any of our problems. And these cases against Donald Trump have helped him way more than hurt him so far. Just indicting Trump was enough to help him secure the nomination. And the fundraising he's done off things like his mugshot are ridiculous. Next up was Senator Tommy Tuberville, arguably the dumbest senator in Congress. The previous football coach continued the new strategy of violating Donald Trump's gag order on his behalf. But first, he had a new ridiculous complaint to cry about.
First of all, I'm disappointed in the courtroom. I'm hearing Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump. He is former President Trump. Give him some respect. I mean, that's what that place is in there. It's no respect. Here's what I'm seeing, too. It is depressing. That courtroom is depressing. This is New York City, the icon of our country, and we got a courtroom that's the most depressing thing I've ever been in. Mental anguish is trying to be pushed on the Republican candidate for the President of the United States this year. That's all this is. He's been here a month. He's been here a month. I am disappointed in looking at the Americans, supposedly American citizens in that courtroom, that the DA comes in and he acts like it is his Super Bowl. And I guess it is, to be noticed. But that's what's happening in this country. The Republican candidate for President of the United States is going through mental anguish in a courtroom that's very depressing. Very depressing.
Mental anguish? Give me a break. If anything, criminal defendant Donald Trump has been given special treatment during this whole process. But for the first time in his life, he doesn't get to call the shots and is at the mercy of the judge. God forbid he has to sit there and be held accountable. And what's with the supposedly American citizens in that courtroom statement? Is he attacking the jurors? Sounds like it to me. And that is a whole other level of intimidation from these lunatics.
I'm sitting there listening to a guy on the stand that they had to get out of house arrest because he lied in another court to testify in this court. He's a convicted felon. I mean, this guy, he's up there giving an acting scene, and all of a sudden he comes out and says, oh, I have recorded President Trump on my telephone. This guy worked for President Trump. I mean, how can you be convinced by somebody that is a serial liar? I mean, there should be no reason that anybody should listen to this guy. But at the end of the day, the Democrats are trying to beat President Trump in the jury box because they can't beat him at the ballot box. That's end of story.
So, this is the new desperate strategy for Trump. Continue to try to intimidate the witnesses and court officials by having his surrogates attack them. Absolutely disgusting behavior from everyone involved. But what do you expect? This trial will wrap up in the next few weeks, and hopefully the jury will find Donald Trump guilty. Based on this new strategy, it seems like Donald Trump isn't too optimistic about the evidence exonerating him or the prosecutors failing to convince a jury he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not sure that being a convicted felon will dampen his base of support much, but it will have an impact on independent and moderate voters out there. And the time he spent in court has taken precious campaign time away from him, costing him millions of dollars in donations and support.